originally started at the state attorney's office, like so many young lawyers do, just trying to get trial experience. And did that for just under 2 years, and then went into private practice. So I've been here since since 2005. The interesting thing about it was I actually was studying for the bar and didn't take the bar exam in Florida until 2006 because I had come from Alabama, where I went to school, and then moved down here. And there was a provision of the states, like, I guess it's kind of a tool they were using to recruit prosecutors. They would allow the prosecutors to work under the supervision of the state attorney while they studied for the bar. As long as they were scheduled to take the next bar exam, they could go ahead and practice.
Okay.
So I came under that rule in the early 2000s, and have been here ever since, doing a lot of personal injury work, a lot of insurance claims, and some product liability cases.
Run me through that, because I know you're an Army veteran too. You started out in the Army. Were you already went to college before you went in the Army, or did you go in and then?
No, I was kind of floundering as a freshman in college when I joined the Army, and so I wasn't really a true, dedicated college student until after I dug a few hundred foxholes. That'll make you real smart real fast.
My uncle has a saying. It was, you should always join the military after high school, because a lot of times you don't know what you want to do. And then if you go in the military, you know exactly what you want to do by the time it comes up for re-enlisting. So
my dad told me when I was a kid, he said, if you don't study, you're going to be digging ditches. I could not believe how right he was, because I was digging those foxholes in the Army thinking, man, I should have studied harder. So when I got out after my first enlistment, I went back to school and
what did you do in the Army?
I was an artilleryman.
Ooh.
So every time we stopped, we were supposed to dig a fighting position.
Yeah.
And we didn't always do it, but yeah, there was a lot of digging. There was a lot of explosives.
A lot of field time.
Lots of field time. So
So-
my son is a he was a Cav scout.
Oh, 19
Platoon
Delta.
leader.
Yeah.
And he after a couple of years in the Army, he was like, Dad, I thought you were kidding about how much field time you did. He said, when we go out to the field, the artillery guys have already been there for a while.
Yeah.
He said, when we go home and clean up and get a hot meal and a shower, the artillery guys are still out there. He's like, those guys live in the field. I said, I wasn't kidding. When I said 9 months out of my first year in the Army was spent in the field, it was in the field.
What's like one of the differences, like, the way that I've tried to explain it to people, because everybody's always like, oh, where'd you deploy? That's the first thing. It's like, dude, when you're in the infantry or when you're in a combat MOS, it's almost kind of like you're deployed all the time.
Right.
Like, because if you're not overseas, like when you're home, that's where you're training to go to war. You're training to kill the enemy. So it's like, I think my first field exercise that I went on was like 60 days. Like I was out in the field for 60 days. Like when I first got to my unit, and here I was coming out of OSUT and airborne school and getting to my unit. And then it's like, cool. Like, oh, I get it. We probably, because our final FTX at OSUT was like 3 weeks.
Right.
So I'm like, a normal field problem is going to be, 3 weeks, and it was 60 days. And I was like, whoa, what is going on? Like, this is longer than I've ever, and then it's like no shower, no everything like that. And I was like, all right, cool. This is infantry life. This is what it's like. So you thought you knew when you left Benning, but then when you got to your unit, you were like, oh, now I understand. But yeah. So no, I get the field time, and it's hard on somebody. A lot of people don't. So he's a 19 Delta. Where's he at?
Well, he just got done with his first enlistment, his 4-year obligation after he finished ROTC and was commissioned. So it's not an enlistment, but he just got done with his first 4-year tour, and he's in law school now.
Nice. Oh,
So maybe he might, take after the old man. He certainly has so far. So good for
yeah.
him.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, so cool. So you come out of the Army and then you just decided you want to be a lawyer? How does that work?
So my plan was to be a JAG attorney, and when I finished law school, I actually got custody of my two little boys, and being a single parent, I did not feel like I was deployable. So that was the end of my military career. Was actually, when I graduated law school, I was going back in as a JAG lawyer, and I actually planned on at least just doing it and finishing my 20 years, at least in the reserves. But being a single dad, I didn't feel like I could even, do a 2-week drill, much less deploy. So yeah, that was the end of my career. So I was ready to practice and do the civilian,
Yeah.
civilian gig for the rest of my life.
Were you originally from here?
No. I grew up coming to Panama City and Panama City Beach as a kid, growing up in Alabama.
Okay.
And so when they were expanding their prosecution office here in Panama City, when I graduated from law school, I figured that's what I wanted. I wanted to get in the courtroom.
Yeah.
I wanted to get trial experience. And so the best way to do it is as a prosecutor. Everyone will tell you that. They've got, a really good, robust public defender system here in Florida. So that's the other best option for a new lawyer if they want to get trial experience.
Yeah.
So, there's 1,000 other jobs you can do as a lawyer that you never see the courtroom.
Yeah.
But it was kind of where I felt like it was where the rubber meets the road. I mean, it's the ultimate deciding factor in our system. So I
Yeah.
wanted to learn it, and I got an opportunity here in Bay County.
Okay. So, but you went before you went private practice doing, because what's your main thing that you, what type of law?
Personal injury.
Okay.
A lot of car accidents, trucking accidents, product liability cases. We do handle insurance claims, and that's a common occurrence, or at least every few years we'll have a natural disaster where we'll.
Oh, I bet you during Hurricane Michael, you couldn't breathe.
I was busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was busy. But we just learned to eat the elephant one bite at a time, and
Yeah.
if it takes a few years, it takes a few years, and that's what we did. So.
Well, you're protecting people against the big insurance companies, which I think here in the state of Florida is a pretty big deal.
It's going to be a real big deal the next go round. We've just gone through a round of tort reform, and by reform I mean basically they've taken away a lot of your rights as an insured. So
Explain that.
well, for instance, after Hurricane Michael, we were able to hold the insurance companies accountable, because if an insurance company wrongfully denied or underpaid a claim and you had to hire a lawyer, then that insurance company could be held to pay your attorney's fees at the end of the case if they lost in in trial. So now they've taken that attorney fee provision away from anybody in Florida, and so if you sue your insurance company, you'll have to pay out of whatever recovery. So if you have a $100,000 policy and they don't pay it, and you go to trial and you win the $100,000, then you have to pay your attorney out of that money that you won, and whatever's left is what you have left to fix your house.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty big change from what we had before, and that's going to affect a lot of people. But we also had, provisions of our negligence laws, like the statute of limitations was cut in half from 4 years to 2 years. That's a big thing, because if you get hurt in an accident and you're seeing doctors, you might see, a dozen different specialists for your injuries. If you're still treating at that 2-year mark, your lawyer has no choice but to go ahead and file suit. You may not even have had the surgeries that you have to get to maybe, fix your back or your shoulder, or those are very common, or your neck. And so 2 years was a big change for us in my line of work. So
It was the craziest thing. And I don't know if you can talk about it, but like as you're sitting here talking about these claims with insurance companies during Hurricane Michael, what do you think was the craziest thing that you had seen as far as from a lawyer standpoint? Maybe a case that might have been just kind of like, wow, this is insane what this insurance company's trying to do or get away with. Did you see that kind of stuff where they were trying to get one over? Because I hear it a lot.
sure.
Perfect example, like a buddy of mine, like lost his roof. Side of the house was pretty much like bashed in, and the amount of money that the insurance company gave him, it was a slap in the face because of how much it was going to cost.
Yeah, I had a trial last year against an insurance company that after it was actually Hurricane Ian that hurt these people's, did a lot of damage to their house. Hurricane Ian hit the west coast of Florida, and I think it might have come ashore as a Category 4. It was a big storm, and anyway, their insurance company sent out an adjuster. The adjuster wrote up the claim. The adjuster basically said, they down there, it's very common to have these expensive, like cement tile roofs, and they had one of those.
Like the terracotta.
A lot of terracotta,
Yeah.
a lot of concrete,
Yeah.
but they're very expensive, very heavy roofs, and these folks had it. It was a pretty expensive repair job, and the adjuster came out, wrote up the claim, told these people he was writing the roof to be replaced, and when they got their estimate back from their insurance company, there was they said just a few broken tiles, and it's below your deductible, or it was pre-existing damage. I can't remember which they said, but we're not going to pay anything on the roof. And so these people were pretty surprised, and they hired us. And when we tried the case and proved that the field adjuster had written a $100,000 roof into his estimate, or may have been a little bit less than that, but that's what the contractors were going to charge to replace the roof. They made this big deal about how there were just like 4 tiles, and they put up an expert on the stand to say that 4 tiles were broken as a result of Hurricane Ian, a Category 4 storm, and so I spent an entire afternoon showing this guy pictures of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of misplaced or broken tiles on these people's roof, and I said, "Is this one? Is this one? Is this?" It got so repetitive. It got so repetitive that the judge was like, "Bill, we get the point."
Yeah.
I'm like, Your Honor, if he's going to keep lying, I got to keep asking questions.
Yeah.
And turns out the estimate, we got the original estimate and presented that to the jury, and they said, "Oh, no, jury can't see that." And the judge is like, "That guy was called out to do an estimate under this statute of Florida law that says you guys have 14 days to send him to these people's house. He went and he did the estimate. What do you mean they can't see the estimate?" It's just outrageous what tricks that are being pulled on people. And
Just to save a buck. Like at the end of the day, it's just trying to save money too. Because they know. Do you think that they? Well, let me ask that, because maybe it's wrong for me to say that. Do you believe a lot of times like insurance companies intentionally do those things, or do you think that it's something that they just don't pick up on while they're?
so a lot of times they'll have a network-wide meeting after a natural disaster, and they will tell all the adjusters that they have hired. They may be in-house in the company, or they may be contract labor that they brought in for a specific natural disaster like a big hurricane. And they will tell them, this is what we expect. And in many cases, I have heard from the adjusters that they were told, this company is not writing any roofs for replacement. Hadn't even seen the damage yet.
Yeah.
And that's what these people are saying, is that they've been told, these are your marching orders. So, so if your question is, do they unfairly plan to deny claims or deny certain repairs? Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
There's been a history of that. In that particular case, in that particular trial, that particular company had just paid its CEO $50 million over the course of the 24 months preceding that trial. So over 2 years, but still, it wasn't because they didn't have the money.
Yeah.
They just didn't want to pay my client's roof.
Yeah.
So yeah, it happens a lot. And, you know, we live in a system that it's very hard to hold them accountable. And now
Yeah.
it's going to be even harder in Florida to hold them accountable. But there is a way to do it if you want to know. I mean, just if you need to put this in your back pocket, we're in hurricane season. If you got hit tomorrow by a hurricane, my recommendation would be to get the emergency loans that FEMA or the SBA will give you, and the Small Business Administration will send someone to your house, just like an insurance adjuster. They will write up all the damage, and they will give you a low interest loan to make all the repairs. So take advantage of that loan, make all the repairs, because another change that we've had, and this is more of a case law in court decision that we have here in the Panhandle, we have to actually make the repairs and pay for them in order to get the insurance company to reimburse us. Big change.
Yeah.
That is a big change, and that's going to mean a lot of people are just going to be scratching their heads, and they're going to feel very rejected. They're going to feel very, left out in the cold.
Yeah.
And they're not gonna know what to do. And I'm telling you now, get those repairs done, and then come see me, and we'll file suit over the entire amount that you pay for those repairs.
Well, I'm gonna switch subjects a little bit on that.
We can.
Yeah.
You can take this conversation
I
in
have
any
a question.
direction.
So, this is something recently that just came up. Maybe you've heard about it. Have you heard about the solar panel stuff? This, the lawsuits, I think, that are going to start rolling out on that.
I have not.
So,
But I do know a lot of people that are irritated that
I got a call like a couple of weeks ago from like this attorney law firm out of wherever, and they were asking us because we were an ADT customer, and ADT bought from Sun Pro was like the name of the company, right? They bought Sun Pro out that installed my solar, and Sun Pro sold out to ADT. ADT went completely out of business. So right now, if we have a problem with our solar panels, or if we have just anything, like we were supposed to get, I think it was like once a year, we were supposed to get a wash. They're supposed to come out. They're supposed to wash the solar panels and do all that crap. Nothing like that has been done yet. And the company hasn't contacted us, whoever took that over. So now you have attorney law firms that are getting involved that are like, hey, all these ADT customers. So they're calling, almost like cold calling, and they're trying to get us to file a lawsuit against, I guess it would be ADT, because they're not following through on their contract. But the way I'm seeing this is with all the people that got solar, and now FPL has their whole solar farm. They got all that going on. I mean, do you think that that's going to be a thing in the future for, as far as like legal liabilities on those companies?
Yeah.
Because they're switching hands crazy. All of these companies are.
Yeah, it reminds me of the mortgage foreclosure crisis we had in the late 2008 to 2000, several years.
Yeah.
And yeah, the mortgage servicing companies were constantly switching,
Yeah.
And anytime you've got big ticket items that are constantly switching hands, and the fact that those contracts are also generally financed with a second mortgage
Yeah.
on the houses means that that's another wrinkle that creates probably more, you know, litigation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do, but I'm not involved in any of it. I haven't looked at any of it. I can imagine it's gonna get pretty heated though.
I was curious about that because it's just something that came across the other day, and I was like, speaking of insurance companies, I see how you void your roof's warranty when you have one of these things installed. Now these companies are going out of business. All it's going to take one good hurricane to come through here, and then it's going to screw that up, mess up the roof. Homeowners insurance isn't going to want to cover anything because you already voided whatever was on whatever because you installed solar panels, and then you can't even get a hold of the damn company to figure out what's going on, who handles that. It's a mess right now, and I think it's all over the state of Florida.
And most insurance won't cover those panels, so you've got a very expensive accoutrement on your or fixture on your roof that you can't insure. So that's why I never got any of those.
Yeah. Well, I've been seeing your TikTok videos, and my wife sent one to me the other day, and it had to do with the legalities behind like internet, social media, having to do with basically the damage, psychological damage that is being created on our teenagers, kids, adults.
Sure.
And, it was like one of those things where I was talking to my wife the other day, and I had said, our kids will not have a cell phone until like they are driving. And then when they are driving, they will not I don't know how I'm going to have to do it, but it's like, I don't want them to have internet. You're not allowed to have social media. I believe social media is the devil at the end of the day, which is kind of funny because
that's ironic.
Yeah, because that's that's what I do. But you fascinated me with what you were talking about, and just so my listeners know about what you were talking about, you were going over basically we're at a time now to where you can take legal action on these companies.
Right. Yeah, they have. We've had a few trials and more to come. The social media platforms have always relied on a provision of the law. There's a federal code section 230 of, speaking of irony, it's called the Communications Decency Act. And it's, protecting any platform from anyone's posts or maybe they say something defamatory or something like that. The platform itself is immune from an individual's statements. So if you put something on YouTube is not liable for something that you say. And so they've relied on that Section 230 to pretty much give themselves blanket immunity from any negligence action. But these new cases are operating under a theory of product liability. So they're not saying that the words that people are using are defamatory or hurtful. They're not challenging directly challenging that Section 230 immunity. What they're doing is they're saying that the platform itself is operating with a defective algorithm or a defective product that's injuring people, especially children. So the idea is that they have manufactured or designed the product to be intentionally addictive and harmful to young people. So, for instance, if you have a child that develops maybe she's got, I'll say she, but it could be, anybody develops like an eating disorder because they have become obsessed with their appearance or whatever, this algorithm will constantly feed and measure your interest to feed you more of what you're looking at. And so it's designed to keep you engaged. Well, if you're an adult, you may recognize what they're doing. You can see, okay, they're feeding me these things. They're feeding me these, I like to cook. So they're feeding me these recipes.
Yeah.
And I'm trying not to get fat. So they're feeding me lots of low carb recipes.
Yeah.
So it knows that I'm interested in low carb cooking. And it'll just feed constantly forever. And if I didn't have a job, I could literally be on the internet 24/7 watching these things that they know that I'll be interested in and I'll be more engaged in, and they're feeding whatever interests I have. And that's harmful to these children who don't understand what the internet is doing to them, don't understand that this is a specific product that is intended to keep them engaged. And by keeping them engaged, they're creating an addiction, and that addiction is harmful. And kids that hurt themselves are becoming, it's very prevalent. If you look at the number of children with just minor mental disabilities as a result of their online activities, you will be astonished at the number. If you don't have one in your family, you have a friend that does. I guarantee it.
Might be me.
Well, it is what you do. So you stay engaged.
Yeah. No. So can they? Because the First Amendment gets involved a lot.
Sure.
So as far as these companies, are they? And it's almost kind of like, I hate to word it this way, but it's like they hide behind it. Everybody hides behind the First Amendment and how things are handled on social media, because it's always, well, it's a freedom of speech. And so it's not the same as somebody getting online and saying, Bill is, he's a freaking murderer, right? That's defamatory. That's not true. And it's a lot easier to go after that person for saying something crazy. But for these companies that sit there, they're hiding behind the First Amendment, but they have already done the math and the science in the background to know exactly what their speech is going to do to other people, whether it's to push, what was it, Ozempic for a while? It was like every single time I was watching a video or a reel on something, Ozempic came by. And then after Ozempic, it was like you're talking about, like there's always some sort of product that they're trying to push. And then all of your reels, because the algorithm, are all around whatever it is that they're pushing. And it's right. I know I'm pretty much reiterating what you already said. But
but you bring up something that's really important, and it's profit.
Yeah.
They're pushing these products that are they've come down in price, but I mean Ozempic for 10 20 years made $1,000 a month off of people.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get off of it that easily, so they have a customer for life, so to speak. And these companies will pay anything to put those ads in front of you, anything, because it's that profitable. And that's when you have a problem. So you are talking about putting these products, and by products I mean the social media platforms, in front of children and other people with mental disorders, and they're going to say, hey, let's say, for instance, they have a body dysmorphia, which is kind of an obsession with yourself and your appearance, and that person has been seen to engage to be easily engaged in, all of these, fitness reels and and nutrition and stuff. And so they know that that person is a prime candidate for some of these weight loss drugs. And at $1,000 a month, they can target that person based on their interests or their obsessions. And that's when the First Amendment starts to lose its power. You know, the classic law school example of the limits of First Amendment speech is somebody running into a crowded theater and screaming fire. And it starts a stampede, people get injured, and somebody says, well, that person had freedom of speech. That person did not have the freedom to incite a stampede that got people trampled to death. You know, that there has to be a limit, especially when you know that what you're doing with that freedom is harming people.
Could you, kind of off topic but on topic though, do you think the media should be held accountable for the freedom of speech sometimes when they create mass chaos because of a story or because it's something something you were just saying a second ago, when you have a person that creates mass chaos because going into a theater and saying fire, you know, our media, local media, our national media, they will push something so hard that it causes problems.
Well, so
Like, how do you get away with that?
So the standard that we're operating under on the First Amendment as it pertains to the news media is a case called New York Times v. Sullivan, and it's a case out of Montgomery, Alabama during the Civil Rights Movement, and a local I think it was the city police chief. It may have been the county sheriff, but I think it was the city police chief, sued the New York Times. And basically, the Supreme Court at the time set in place a standard that is almost impossible to overcome, that really did not have any precedence in our law. And they said, they used the term actual malice as the threshold that you have to meet as the plaintiff. It's not totally impossible, but it is a very high standard because you now, as the plaintiff suing the media, you have to prove the mental state of the media outlet that said something defamatory about you or that caused mass hysteria by, putting out false information. So we have a case here in Bay County, Young versus CNN, where they were able, through discovery, to get a hold of certain text messages between the reporters at CNN, and they were able to meet that actual malice threshold right here in Bay County, and that was a Navy veteran who was overseas in Afghanistan.
Tracking.
And he was able to successfully sue CNN. The problem with that case for you or I on any given Sunday is we're not going to have those text messages, and we're not going to know they exist. And so we're going to be very slow to think that we're going to get lucky and get that smoking gun email or that smoking gun text message that proves actual malice. So it's very rare. And as far as the future of that goes, I don't think that the New York Times case, New York Times v. Sullivan, is going to be the standard forever. There are rumblings out of our current panel of Supreme Court justices, like I think Clarence Thomas, I think somebody quoted him as saying that case needs to be revisited. I don't know, you may be a little young to remember when Joe Biden was chairing the Judiciary Committee in Justice Thomas's confirmation hearing, but it was, as Justice Thomas put it, I think he called it a high-tech lynching. And then you are old enough to remember Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation hearing, and he was certainly feeling like he was being completely defamed. And, his accuser, said that he did some inappropriate things when they were in high school, and
Yeah.
she couldn't remember certain things like maybe when or something. Those are things you'd probably remember, but he felt and was, I think, righteously indignant about the whole
Yeah.
smear campaign. If that happened to you, you'd feel the same way. Now, the reason it's important that they feel that way about it is because they're going to be the ones to decide whether or not to overturn New York Times v. Sullivan. And I don't know if anything that Anita Hill had to say about Justice Thomas was true, and I don't know if Brett Kavanaugh's accusers were lying or not. But the fact that they say that these people were lying, and one of them at least has mentioned that New York Times v. Sullivan needs to be revisited, speaks volumes about the future of that case. They're going to look at it and they're going to decide, and it only takes 4 of those justices to vote on whether or not to review a case. It takes 5 to overturn, but 4 to hear the case. And so, Amy Coney Barrett, she's had some things that she could certainly be upset about. I think Neil Gorsuch, although he didn't have the same kind of experience that Thomas and Kavanaugh had in his confirmation, I think maybe maybe it was his mother had something in the public realm that he has mentioned in the past. I mean, any of them.
Yeah, I think that the freedom of speech, whenever we start talking about the First Amendment, it's going to be coming up on a lot of that stuff coming up in the future. Because right now, how long can we go with people? And I've done it here on the show where, I've had, like, to look at old Ron with his show, because I've gone through some pretty crazy stuff over the past couple of months, but I've watched some of the stuff, and he was pretty careful, like, how he said things. It was normally like, this could be, might be, it appears to be, I think, and it seems like that's kind of like the way around accusing people. It's the way around defaming people. I think that's how people are getting away with it in court, right? Like, it's I said I think that was a thing, or I said, well, maybe, but I didn't speak in absolutes. Because I've had an attorney tell me that recently. It was like, never speak in absolutes when you're talking about anybody. And it was just kind of like, okay. He says, unless it's 100% fact. He's like, but if you are stating an opinion, if you're stating whatever about anything, always speak like could be, maybe.
You make a good point about it having to be an absolute fact. I mean, if you are telling the truth is an absolute defense to defamation. Mm-hmm. However, if it's a he said, she said,
that's not fact.
Well, it might be fact, but your level of proof is based on certainly biased information.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's just you saying it, anyone could see that as a biased point of view. So you do want to be careful, and I'm not saying that the media is going to lose its First Amendment rights. I'm simply saying that you've got a lot of people that are interested in revisiting that standard, and because before the 60s, defamation was very common. It was, you could prove, if you could prove that they were lying. I mean, in the New York Times v. Sullivan case, they got a verdict in Montgomery, Alabama against the New York Times pretty easily. So, at the trial level. So, it used to be pretty common, and the standard was a pretty, reasonable bar, like anything else, proving negligence, showing that somebody, hurt somebody else because of their negligent act. They could say anything negligent, not run any kind of, research or fact checking or verification, and they do it all the time.
Well, that's
Carelessness is not the standard though now, and you can get people hurt just being careless.
Yeah.
And that
cost people their lives, like literally based on what you say. Because sometimes, and it is especially guys with
getting some spam calls. It's election day, and we're gonna get a lot of those. But go ahead.
Yeah. That's why, my whole thing is, people that have a microphone, that even have podcasts, or they have, news shows, because there's a lot of these that are kind of popping up. I've recently started following a couple of guys, and then they'll say things, and then, I try to bring up as many facts as I possibly can up on the screen when it goes through the editing process. So I have a guy that does a lot of my editing of all of my videos. And he likes to throw up the facts, as I'm talking. That way, it shows up. Or even the other person. Like you named a couple of things. It's going to go up in the podcast, while you talk. So then it's like, these are facts. These aren't something that somebody's just, coming up with off the top of their head. And it's not any type of grainy footage of something that doesn't make sense or, doesn't really match what we're talking about. What I was saying was, anybody who has a microphone that has a following, and it doesn't matter how big your following is, it can be 10 or it can be 10,000, it can be 10 million. You have a responsibility to to back up what you're saying with fact. Nobody likes tabloids. Nobody likes fake shit. Everybody wants to see the truth because, and the problem is that there are a lot of sheep, and these shows, some of these guys, there's this new young guy that I was just listening to last night, and he got on there and was criticizing this whole Fox News thing with Joey Jones, the Marine. He lost both his legs in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
He was an EOD tech, and he was just going on and on and on about all these different things. And it was like, you have a following. This has got 1.1 million views. I'm looking in the comment section. I'm seeing all these people that are just angry, upset, pissed off. And I'm like, dude, all you're doing is stoking a fire towards somebody. And, I know that for me, I don't know about old Ron, but for me, my whole thing is I don't ever want to put somebody in a position to where you go out and about, if I have an issue with somebody and they did something wrong in our community and I talk about it on my podcast, I also have to remember the fact at the end of the day, whoever I'm talking about, that's somebody's son or daughter. That's somebody that has a life. That's somebody that has a career. If you're going to do it, you base it with fact. Because if you're not basing it with fact, you're just a shit talker. And my whole thing about it is when that person goes out into public, if I put them in danger by saying something, because there's a lot of crazy people out here. I'm not going to say anything about, listen, I got family to live up in the sticks, right? Very much so. But there are some crazy people out there, and if, we can look at all the different types of assassination attempts on the president. We can look at what happened to multiple people where we have seen something that has been said in the media or online or on social media, and then that person ends up in the hospital. They end up having to move. They end up having all these different problems in their life just because there was a guy that turned into a dick behind a microphone, and he hides behind the First Amendment speech.
Well,
so
and
that stuff.
It happened to me. It happened to me after the 2020 election. I made
Oh, really?
I made some comments after the 2020 election that and I made a joke about, me and my 2 million closest friends moving to Georgia. Well, Fox News actually sent a reporter to talk to me, and that reporter was Bobby Kennedy's little brother, and he asked me if I registered to vote in Georgia, and I told him no. But going back to that truth as an absolute defense and defamation and stuff, he actually said that I registered to vote in Georgia. So, and I got all kinds of hate mail, and I was just making fun of the whole election, because I mean, if any, the people that said that was the most secure, well run election, clearly had an agenda. It wasn't. Everybody knew that there was a whole lot of games being played, and we were righteous in our suspicion. So, but anyway, so Dougie Kennedy was able to lie, and the thing is I really could not challenge him without him just doubling down on the lie, because it was just him and me on the phone. And so, they ran a story that wasn't true, and I suffered a great deal because of it. And,
wow.
And they made it look like I was a villain of sorts, which is fine. As a lawyer, we're used to being,
the bad guy.
Yeah, villainized, vilified, whatever. So I was somewhat used to that, but not on that scale. That was pretty widespread. And they have somewhat qualified immunity from lawsuits. So, but you're right. That's a real person with a real family and a real staff of people that work for them and with them, and a whole community that the media affects when they are careless.
These freaking some of the. So I had on a lot of these guys running for Congress. I think the one that got hit the most was Austin Rogers. When he came on, it was actually kind of, Austin's a very calculated person. He showed up probably about 10 minutes beforehand. We didn't really do any small talk. It was just like, hey, I'm here. You ask me any questions, man, I'm going to tell you like it is. I'm going to be honest with you, whatever. He sat there, and he stayed. I could tell while I was asking him questions, he was getting upset about some of the things that were said about him, like on the campaign trail.
Yeah, it's got to be rough, man. My heart bleeds for them. It's tough.
But it's way different for him, and the reason
you've run for office, so you know what it feels like.
I wish I remembered it, but with Austin though, when we got done talking, and he was like, second interview getting back into this, and like I'm still trying to learn how to interview people. I know how to talk to people, which is pretty much the same thing. But I asked him, I was just like, hey man, like I can tell. He was like, because there was several times during his interview with me where he was like, this person said this person has said this person. Like one of the rumors that had got around to me before he came on was Austin wasn't from Panama City, Florida. Like
he actually graduated with my daughter from
from
Mosley
High School.
Yeah,
one of my buddies. So I like the guy. Austin looked familiar when he came in here. I was like, I know you from somewhere. I think he played baseball when I played baseball at R.L. Turner back when I was growing up. I'm pretty sure he played on a team somewhere. I could be wrong, but I think that's how I remembered him. But I ended up, when he left, I actually called one of my buddies and was like, hey, do you know this Austin Rogers guys? Because he graduated the same year we did. And my buddy, he was valedictorian over at Bay High School, Alec Littman. He's a good friend of mine. And he was like, he goes, oh, yeah, the soccer player. Yeah, that dude, yeah. And I said, dude, so you like known him for a while, right? He's like, yeah, you know, his brother was on Bay High soccer team and all this. And so he started talking about him. I was like, dude, there are people around here saying that this guy didn't even grow up here. He's not from here and all this. He's like, what? And I'm like, yeah. And then, so like there was that. And then it was his wife is, like there were people that were telling me before, cause dude, my messages, I turned them off on Facebook. Like, I just don't want to see notifications because whenever I was having candidates on, people send in crazy stuff to ask. I mean, just the craziest shit. But one of them was like, his wife is from Lebanon and his dad, you know, or his father-in-law has given him over $1 million and his dad's a Muslim and like all this. And I'm like, and it's just like, this is kind of crazy stuff that people are like, and it's always like people don't want to type it out. That's when I know like, there's probably nothing to that. It's gonna be like, hey, give me a call. I've got some questions about it for this and that and the other. And but I've heard some crazy stuff about these candidates, but he's probably the worst one that got the rap on all of it. I don't think any other candidate got lied about like he did. And which brings up the next thing, you know, for like some of these lies that obviously would cost you, especially with everything that's going on right now in the Mideast, especially everything that's going on right now in Israel, especially with all of that stuff going on. When it comes back around, if that costs him the race, that's got to be lawsuits on people that have said that kind of stuff. I mean, he's an attorney too, so I'm sure he knows, but
yeah, it's tough. And, you know, you having gone through it, you know, the people, the political arena is where people get the most loose and careless with the things they say. It's just apparently so emotionally charged. People just can't help themselves. And, you know, I feel for any candidate that puts their hat in the ring and deals with it, because there isn't any recourse. It costs you an election, and then most of the time there is no recourse for what they've done to you. And that's the whole reason they're doing it to you, because they know that they can, you know, hide behind a keyboard or.
Well, isn't it crazy anyway? Because like we're talking about guys that sit there and they're like, you know, and I get it. I mean, when you start getting up in the Congress level, I think state representative, when you start getting above that county level, that's where I think a lot of money comes into play, especially when you start to get into lobbyists and everything like that. But these guys that are running for office, they have already pretty much, and I've always said this, you know, even after my wife was like, yeah, you ran for office. And I was like, what? Like, I feel like politicians, they have a piece of them that has to throw their family aside. They have to keep them over here to the side. And then it's like, because you don't want them to get attacked, because that's where everybody goes, right? You want to go to personal attacks on people that aren't even part of the fight, right? Like I've had that even with the podcast, because I've seen some stuff and it's like people attacking my wife and then talking about my kids and then talking about my dad and talking about my mom. And then like, it's like, hey guys, I'm the one that's got the microphone that's running my mouth. I don't know why you're talking about all these other people. But I think even in this type of thing where you're doing this in the community, talking to people, it's kind of like, I got to put my family over here to be like, hey, I'm the one that you want. I'm the one that you talk trash about. But when I say that, where they have to put them to the wayside, is it's almost like you can't have any feelings even towards the things that are said about your family, which is, it's hard to do. I mean,
I think that's why they do it, is to throw you off your game. I mean,
these guys have given up everything. Like they give up their jobs because, you know, of scrutiny mainly, right? How they're looked at in their church, how they're looked at in public whenever they go out. Somebody's always making up some sort of lie about them. Always. There's always a lie out there. And then, so you have to deal with all that. And then on top of all that going on in the community, then you have the media that comes out of nowhere and they start, you know, not telling things the way that it actually is. And they put their own little spin on it. These guys go through a lot. Even just the candidates, people that don't even make it to office, like the stuff that happens to them and the stuff that they have to put up with, that nobody really deserves that type of treatment until you have completely 100% fucked up once you've already been elected. Then I'm like, okay, it's
You're fair game.
you're
at that
fair
point.
game at that point because you done messed up so many times. These guys who are running for office and they're trying to get their start, I think it's completely stupid.
No, I think we've got a severe talent suppression because of it. I mean, that with everybody in the world having a keyboard and a phone in their
Nobody wants
pocket,
to deal with it.
nobody wants to deal with it. So yeah, we suppress talent. I think we've got a great cadre of talent. Not that I want to get political on your show right now.
No.
But I think we still in the Panhandle. We still recruit talent. I don't know how much longer that's going to last because of social media and the regular news media. I truly understand what you and every other candidate has been through, having been smeared myself a few times. It's just the way it goes. But
I've looked at some stuff from just our podcast that we had going on for a little while before I came back, and there's Ron's definitely he's guilty of some stuff because I've seen some, even when other candidates have run in the past, how you handle social media and talk about other people. I'm ashamed of some things that even we've done and put out there. Some things I'm not. Some things I'm not. I'm like, nah, that looks like it's right on point. Like, but anyway, well, getting back into you as like a local attorney, is there anything that you'd like to talk about, like in our area right now, that we need to be focused on the most? Like,
whew, man, I tell you what, I have some trucking cases that would scare the pants off of you. To know that these 18-wheelers are out there and they
don't care.
The prevalence, it is so common for a driver to pencil whip their driving logs and say, they drove halfway across the country, but they were on the road for 1 hour. Mm. That screams an exhausted driver who is being either incentivized to drive around the clock and make deliveries or forced to do it by some employer. I don't know, and probably will always get told some version that's not completely true, but it's scary to think what's going on out on the roads. You got to keep your head on a swivel when you're driving next to these big rigs because they will squish your family. And they're just that dangerous. So if I had any one thing to talk about, unfortunately I live in a scary world where, dealing with, injuries and negligence, there's just so many instances of things that I could, try to warn people about. I had a friend that was blown up by an aerosol can. Turns out the aerosol can was designed to
explode.
Yeah. I mean, just bad things happen. So, and he followed the label. So did everything he could to follow the directions and it still blew up. So, there. I don't know. I mean, I don't know where to start. Where
Well, no, you're talking about that. So, me and back in April when I got out of the hospital, I realized that I wanted to spend more time with my wife and kids. And one of the craziest, growing up in the state of Florida here, my parents raised me and my brother. We always had annual passes to Disney. And so, now Disney's kind of taken a turn over the past couple of years with the exploitation of kids and stuff like that. So I've tried to, I don't want to get in. I'm very, very careful about what we do as a family, what we watch as a family. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to take you kids to Disney. So we ended up getting passes. And so we drive down there quite a bit. We're back and forth from Orlando a lot. But coming back and forth from Orlando, dude, man, I don't even like to take You know, because you see what you take I-10 to
75.
75 and down. I don't even do that anymore. I'll take Highway 20
Oh, kind of
down,
the back roads.
and I'll go through Perry, and I take that route down there, and I take all the
I call
back
that the
roads.
scenic route. It's beautiful.
Well, it's not you go through the state forest and all that, but the thing about it, man, dude, just getting on the interstate, it's not so nowadays. And I say now, maybe my dad dealt with this when I was a kid growing up. I don't know, but people don't respect the inside lane thing. I don't know. Is that just like an unspoken rule? I mean, I've seen signs all over the place that are like, "Hey, slower traffic to the right," and you get these semis and they want to sit there and play chicken with each other and just, play grab ass and try to go around each other. And it's like, guys, I'm going, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm going 85 miles an hour. If you're a semi and you are able to keep up with me going 80, you are going way too damn fast. You are not driving a little vehicle. You're driving a massive load. And then that wind and how it whips it, especially going down 75, there's a lot of open, like plain type area. And the wind just comes around and like going around these suckers is like freaking crazy. But then they just sit there and they don't care about you. That's another thing. And I mean, I know there's probably some trucker that's going to be listening. He's like, no, I'm safe. And good for you. I'm glad you are. But the thing about it is like, what I see are just, dude.
Well, to find out,
A lot of negligence.
yeah, to find out that a lot of these guys, didn't have to pass a test before they got behind one of these monster vehicles. Sure.
Don't they have to? No, you have to have a specific license, don't you?
The CDL licenses that they were giving out in some states like California have been found to have been just indiscriminately given out. And for instance, the family that was killed, I think it was on the Florida Turnpike that you're talking about going to Disney.
No, the guy decapitated him, right? Or his truck.
He just kind of pulled a Yui right in the middle of the turnpike and killed that family. That guy didn't speak any English. He couldn't take any test. He couldn't pass a CDL licensing class. So the fact that we're finding out that those dangers are on our highways with our families is terrifying. And my daughter, who was at Mosley with Austin, she went to school at UCF. She would drive that road regularly, back and forth to Panama City. I just had to hold my nose, pray to God that she would make it back safely. But my kids, all four of them, went away to school and basically fought traffic every weekend that they came home. And luckily they're fine, but the dangers are there. They are everywhere. And I'm probably one of those parents that just scared my children because of my line of work.
Yeah.
But maybe it worked because they're still with
still
me.
alive. Yeah, no. Well, because I ride, right? So I ride a motorcycle. I've had motorcycles since I was old enough to purchase one. I've had 3 wrecks now, and I've got. Yeah, we want to talk about memory problems and stuff like that. I like to talk about the concussions that I had when I served, but then at the same time, it's like I had a couple of motorcycle wrecks that should have killed me. I think almost every motorcycle case I've had has at least had a suspected traumatic brain injury related. So a lot of head injuries in motorcycle cases. My last wreck, based on what I was told, was really bad. Like, I mean, I ride sport bikes, so not now. I'm a Harley guy. I always have been a Harley guy. But yeah, 2 of my last wrecks were on sport bikes. One was on a Ducati Panigale V2. And so yeah, I was definitely going
speaking
speed limit.
French to me, man. I don't know.
It's a badass bike. But yeah, I mean, but that last one but what I was getting to is riding on a motorcycle. I kind of have a theory. I think everybody should have to ride a motorcycle for maybe like at least 3 months before you can get a driver's license, because you will respect the road 10 times and you will be able to watch people better, right? Like that's one of the things I get irritated with my wife about, which I think every husband out there could probably make some type of comment about their wife's driving. But for me, I'm like,
Not me.
I'm like, I sit there and I'm
Turn
like,
that camera off. Just kidding.
no, I'm always like, hey, this person is about to come over, and she goes, the turn signal's not on. I'm like, no, you've watched it. I've watched it a couple of times where they've been acting like they're going to come over, and they keep looking in that mirror and they're trying to judge how much room they have. And I'm like, the first thing you do is you're going to speed up, and they're going to come right over on you. I think like the first month being on a motorcycle, I spent most of my time getting out of a ditch somewhere because I've get run off the ditch because of not being able to pay attention on what other people are doing. Yeah. And it's actually, riding a motorcycle is not pleasurable around town. Like, you have to, anyway, it scares the crap out of me when I am on the interstate and there are motorcycles out there and I see them going past a semi, or not even a semi. Like, you're talking about the other, this past trip that when we went down to Disney, there's a guy who was driving down. He had one of these big travel trailers, like an RV, and it was hooked up to like his dually or whatever.
And that guy didn't have to take a CDL test to
That's even scarier because I used to sell RVs, and I've sold Class A's, the big, your Tiffins and Monacos and stuff like that. And so when I've sold those in the past, it's like, you don't need a special driver's license. And I'm like, this is a 42-foot tag axle, and you don't have to have a special license to do it.
You could take out a whole village of children. You could do some real damage with those things. It's like an 18-wheeler. It's that big.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
And it weighs a ton. And you know what? I'm going to put it on the screen, what the average is of wrecks with those things throughout the country. Anyway, because I'm curious on it. But
if you do some research, it's astonishing, and it's also scary. You'll hug your children a little bit tighter, and you'll kiss them goodnight more. It's just so our busy world is also a very, very dangerous world. It scares me. But yeah, you'll see some pretty shocking statistics.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
The number of people hurt and killed.
Yeah. Like, you're just saying that's the scary part of it, and like, there's no justice for it too, is there?
Well, we have a justice system. That's what I do for a living. But
like, take that guy. Take a guy for instance.
Bring him back to life. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. No, I'm tracking that. But like, take the guy for instance that on the Florida Turnpike.
Okay.
Like, what happened to him? Was he?
I think there's a criminal case that's being prosecuted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But any other time, if some of these companies can get away with saying that it was just an accident, it's a freak accident, especially because you were talking about earlier, like these guys that'll have their sleep logs. They're only allowed on the road for a certain amount of time, and then they have to, which, I mean, I have a feeling you can fudge those numbers if you want. You don't have to give accurate numbers on that.
Yeah, I'm currently involved in litigation that I suspect were completely pencil whipped. You don't get from Texas to Florida in a couple of hours. You don't get from California to Florida in
like
less than a few days. You know, I mean, if you're getting a full night's sleep, that's going to take you days.
Yeah.
So yeah, the logs that I've seen.
And so
in the
my
past,
point on that is that if they obviously sleep deprivation, you know a little bit about that, right?
Yeah.
So sleep deprivation.
I think my record was 5 days straight in the Army.
Really?
Yeah, we had no sleep, not a wink.
We used to call it visiting the wizard.
You do get delirious.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate and I was still shooting live rounds over guys like you that were in the infantry, and I was having to really double check my numbers.
You know what? People don't ever talk about that, about how dangerous training is.
Yeah.
People die all the time in training.
Right.
all the time. It's nothing like people. Yeah, I've tried to, because again, that's that whole thing where people are like deployed, not deployed, and it's like, dude, like there are guys that die all the time in training. You'd be surprised. It's a astonishing number.
Yeah, most of the guys I knew downrange, we say downrange when they're, deployed to say Kuwait or
Yeah.
Iraq, they spend a lot of time sitting around doing nothing. But you go to the National Training Center in the Mojave Desert and you're moving 100% of the time and don't sleep for days on end, and that's where people really get hurt or, unfortunately killed, because you're using live explosives. You're using, real track vehicles and tanks and trucks and all the dangerous equipment moving around. But getting back to the dangers,
sleep deprivation. One of the craziest things I've ever seen on sleep deprivation was my battle buddy, who I was in OSUT with. They had kept us up. It was right before we went to Honor Hill. I think Honor Hill is like an 18-mile or 20-mile march or something. But it was like the day before we were doing all these battle drills. It was freezing cold. That's the only thing I remember about Benning, was it just being cold and wet all the time.
it's
But
ironic since it's in Georgia.
yeah, but one of the guys got so sleep deprived that he was sitting there talking to me, and I really wasn't paying attention because we had like this 2-man fighting position that we had, dug out. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, and like he's sitting there and he goes, dude, they got Hawaiian Punch. And I like looked over and he was pressing his canteen against the tree. And he thought it was like the Gatorade fountain from the chow hall.
He's in the mess hall getting.
And I was like, oh shit. Like they told us that if we had any experiences like that, like we needed to notify somebody immediately because you're starting to go into like medical issues.
Right, yeah, total delirium.
I mean, you're talking about we're running around and we have BFEs on, so I mean, it's not like we had live ammunition, but it was one of those things. It was like we're still running around out here. All of us have been trained to kill each other with our bare hands, and now you got this guy thinking that he's in front of a Gatorade machine, and but so obviously seeing the damage that can be done, and plus there's permanent brain damage that's done from sleep deprivation. But that when we talk about sleep deprivation and getting behind the wheel of an 18-wheeler and you are driving down the interstate, you have families that are going, everybody's life is important. But if one of these guys swerves over and they hit and kill somebody, if whoever investigates that case, they have to investigate it extremely thoroughly to be able to prove that this guy was not supposed to be behind the wheel. But what is the worst thing that can happen to that person? Can they get charged with, what is it, just manslaughter or is it murder? Or
yeah, you can get charged with vehicular homicide. There can be criminal charges for that, but it's very rare. Typically, it's a civil matter, and we just engage in the civil liability aspect of it.
Which has got to be crappy for you, because I'm sure you have done a couple of cases where there was a death, and I would imagine you have. But because then you have to, the insurance company has to evaluate what that person's life is worth on paper.
That can be a little cold, very cold. It's a cold calculation, and obviously, it'd be based on their earnings. So somebody that's practicing medicine and has a successful medical practice, that's going to be a different calculation than somebody that's working a minimum wage job, and that's
Wow.
It's very difficult to explain to a loved one who is grieving the loss of that person that there's a valuation put on that person's life. That's not fun at all.
They made a movie about it, about 9/11. The attorney,
Ken Feinberg, the guy that he was charged with doling out the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Kenneth Feinberg. He was also in charge briefly of the 9/11. I mean the BP oil spill fund here. That's how I got to know him.
Yeah. Man, do you know him? Know him? Or you just you've met
shared
before?
some communications, but we never.
Yeah.
I went to his office in New York City. He had a junior associate meet us because we were just panhandle. I think the term was panhandle redneck lawyers. So, yeah, I didn't get to meet him personally.
Yeah, it would be somebody to talk to. But yeah, that movie was crazy about putting a price tag on people's heads that had lost their lives.
Right,
And it's like, how do you do it?
Yeah,
like, it's like
you've got every mergers and acquisitions specialist in New York City, getting killed while the same attack killed a lot of housekeepers and blue collar workers. And so he literally was tasked with what was each of these people, what were they worth?
Yeah.
And that's a very disgusting process. I call that learning how the sausage is made. It's just you hold your nose and do the work, but it's not fun.
Yeah. Have you had to deal with similar things though in your career?
Sure.
Wow.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough. If you have a day laborer who gets killed and you have to explain to the family why the insurance company is treating it the way they are. Why are they calculating it the way they calculate it? I mean, it's certainly not something, I'm an advocate.
Yeah.
I'd be an advocate for you and would fight as hard as I could, but then I have to go back to, loved ones and say, well, that they didn't like what Ron was doing. They calculated what Ron's life was worth this way. Just it's a tough it's a tough message to deliver.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's where people hate attorneys, right? They come back and they that's where it's like, it's the attorney's fault. It's like, I'm not the shooting the messenger. I'm not the guy that freaking came up with it. But this is
well, that's why I like doing what I do, because I don't feel like I have to be the bad guy. I get to be an advocate all the time for my clients. Yeah. So I always just keep up the fight, and I don't ever have to be the guy, that Darth Vader, that says, your life was worthless. We're not paying anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, that's horrible. I don't know how those guys sleep at night, but I fight with them all day, every day. I'm happy to fight them.
Yeah. I'm sure. Well, I know we established so that's your biggest thing right now is your claims. You do all the insurance for personal injury, so hopefully people will reach out to your law firm and everything like that for any type of questions that probably answer for them.
Yeah, I'm here 24/7 generally. I mean, leave a message.
Yeah.
And I'll get back during business hours usually, but for emergencies we avail ourselves there too. So, I'm always available, but I pray nobody ever needs me. But I know calamity is a 24/7 operation. It's always going to be there.
That's what my dad always said. Always make sure you have a doctor and an attorney, and you never lie to either one of them. You always tell them the truth, and so it's kind of like you always have one of those on speed dial, and you always tell the truth to both of them because it's important. So. But Mr. Price, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it, and I enjoyed the conversation.
All right. Thanks, Ron.